stenographer?
I don't see WordWorks up.
I don't either, so. You are expecting her, correct?
We are. Let me give her a call and see where she's at.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, JC.
I did not receive an invitation to the executive session. Is there going to be one? And if so, could I get an invitation?
Yes, I believe there is going to be an executive session, and I don't know if anyone's received one. Maybe it will be sent out during the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I thought Joe had sent one, but maybe.
Joe never sends those.
I would be the one to send it. I'm going to send it to everyone right now.
Okay.
Okay, so it will be arriving shortly.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you for asking. Has anybody heard from Karen or Debbie?
Is it Karen Farrell? Yep. She's here
yes.
in the waiting. She's here in the waiting room.
Okay, let her in, please.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Karen, we were waiting for you.
I apologize. I was here. Apparently I was in the waiting room, just waiting. So sorry about that. May I take roll, please?
Yeah, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. And would you please give us a roll call?
Sure. Chair Hansen. Oh,
present.
Chair Hansen. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Mr. Helms.
Here.
Councillor Carol Romero Worth.
I'm also here.
Councillor Vihil Koppler.
Here.
And Mr. Tom Egelhoff.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I will go on to approval of the agenda. I'm going to go to Mr. Carpenter. Do you have any changes that you would like to move for the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. There's been a lot of discussion all week long around action item 8B. There are still some unresolved questions and details that staff would like some more time to work out. It's our recommendation that this item be tabled for now, get the details worked out and bring it back for a special session at some later date that would not jeopardize the overall schedule of the project.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilton?
Mr. Carpenter, I think that's a good idea, and I'm happy to make a motion. My question is is that both pieces, both agreements? It's the cost share agreement and the transfer agreement?
Yes, Commissioner Hamilton, both.
Okay. I'll make the motion to table that item.
Well, let me, is there any other changes to the agenda from anyone?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Isn't that 9B?
In my packet, it says 8B, action item and discussion and action.
All right, mine says number 8 is action items consent. So 9B is the one that I show as the one that's tabled.
I know we've often had our agendas numbered differently. I don't know.
That is also the way mine shows. I don't know if it's a city
And
county
so
thing.
you might be looking at the previous agenda and not the amended agenda. Okay, anyhow, I will accept Commissioner Hamilton's motion to table 8B and in the city packet 9B. Is that correct?
That works for me.
Okay.
And Madam
Um,
Chair, I would just point out that although there's an item after this item that says approval of consent agenda, we don't actually have a consent agenda. Apparently, Tmgov doesn't let you get rid of that. So I just wanted to let you know that.
I did see that there was no, nothing on consent.
Excuse me.
So, Commissioner Hamilton, do you want to make a motion to approve the agenda with the items tabled?
Sure, I'll move to approve the agenda with the amendment of tabling that one item.
Okay.
Second.
And I have a second from J.C. Helms. A roll call vote, please, Karen?
Sure. Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes,
Counselor Vihil Coppler,
Yes,
and Chair Hansen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Since there is no approval of the consent agenda, I will go on to approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the approval of the minutes of the February 5th, 2021 Buckman Direct Diversion Board meeting? What's the pleasure of the board? Commissioner Hamilton?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Do I have, and I have a second from J.C. Helms. Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes,
Counselor Vihil Coppler,
yes,
and Chair Hansen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, I want to go on to matters from the public. Are there any matters from the public? Jamie Ray?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's matters from the public from Joni Aarons, and she is here, so we can give her 2 minutes to talk.
Okay, that would be
Okay.
fine. Is she in the meeting? I
I
don't
will-
see her.
She's not, she's in attendees, so I will allow her to talk once you give me the okay.
I give you the okay.
Okay. Joni, you'll have 2 minutes to talk. Please make sure to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Thank you. My public comment involves the New Mexico Environment Department lawsuit against the Department of Energy last week with regard to the failed 2016 consent order for LANL. This is an important lawsuit for the Buckman Direct Diversion Board to be aware of and to monitor. CCNS, the Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety, is urging the Environment Department to create opportunities for the public to participate in the negotiations. We are also recommending that the department update and reissue its May 2nd, 2002 imminent and substantial endangerment to health and environment determination that supported the draft consent order after the Cerro Grande fire. CCNS urges the board to also recommend to the department these two items. Also, last week, data from the New Mexico Environment Department and LANL reveal evidence of PFAS, the forever chemicals, in the canyon bottoms and springs at the Rio Grande. I'm working to finalize a map and we'll provide it to you all of the locations where the PFAS have been found. So thank you so much for your consideration of our comments.
Thank you, Ms. Ahrens. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment? Jamie Ray?
There's a couple people, if you don't mind, I can just ask if any of them are here for public comment. I don't recognize any of the names, so give me a second and I will ask everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Donald, are you here to provide a public comment?
No, I'm just here to listen.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, are you here to provide a public comment? You'll have to unmute yourself.
No, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Thank you. There's
Okay,
a
thank you.
number, there's two more, if you don't mind me asking.
Okay, thank you.
There's
Go
a phone
ahead.
number, 1917-293-1420. Are you here to provide public comment? Okay, guess not. One more, NP 100-224. Are you here to provide public comment?
No, I'm here just to listen.
Thank you. There's no more public comments.
Okay, thank you to the public. Thank you for being here. And thank you to Ms. Ahrens for making public comment. I will now close matters from the public and move on to number 7, possibly number 8 in the city packet. Presentation informational item, monthly 7A monthly update on the BDD operations, Randy Segura. Hi, Randy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. BDD operations for the month of February 2021 went pretty well under the circumstances and under cold weather conditions. Our raw water diversions averaged 4.95 million gallons per day. Our drinking water deliveries through our booster stations 4A and 5A averaged 4.7 million gallons per day. Las Campanas did not divert during the month of February. Our on-site treated and non-treated storage was about 250,000 gallons per day. BDD provided approximately 81% of the water supply to the city and county for the month. We do have a brief regional demand drought summary on page 2 with a bit of storage information. Our year-to-date diversions are listed in the graph. February was somewhat above our monthly average for the last 10 years. Daily metered regional demand, about 6.1 million gallons per day. Rio Grande flows, even in a dry winter, averaged approximately 550 cubic feet per second. The storage is listed in the graph. We have a fair amount of water still in Abiquiu, Elvado, Heron. It still looks like a dry winter. We'll see what March has to bring. I did want to mention that we'll be bringing a brief presentation to the next board meeting on BDD low river flow operations to give you an update on our assessment of our ability to divert should we have low river flow again this spring and summer. So we'll bring that to the next meeting. That being said, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Randy, for your excellent report. And we'll move on to 7B, report from the facility manager, Rick Carpenter.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just have a couple of brief items dealing with filling vacant positions. I'm happy to report we believe we've satisfied all the requirements to fill the position of BDD maintenance superintendent. We're merely waiting on Human Resources to provide us the approval to go ahead and fill that position. I think we'll be able to do that in very short order. So I'm excited about that. Similarly, the posting for Mackie Romero's old position, which is now financial supervisor, that closed last Friday, the 28th. I received a list of eligibles this past Tuesday, which is very rapid. And it looks good. We've got a good group of candidates, and we'll be moving forward with interviews just as quickly as we can. And with that, Madam Chair, I would stand for questions.
So are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Hamilton?
Is Mackie by chance going to be on the interview panel?
No, Commissioner Hamilton, she has decided that's probably not something that would be appropriate for her to do. That doesn't mean I don't ask her a lot of questions.
Okay. It would be valuable. I don't know that it would be appropriate either, but it would be valuable. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Carpenter. We will go on to item 7C, a report on March 2nd, 2021 Fiscal Service Audit Committee. It is so nice to see you, Mackie, and it was nice to see you yesterday. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, a Fiscal Service and Audit Committee meeting was held yesterday, Wednesday, March 3rd. We did discuss the budget, which I will be presenting today. And then we also discussed the solar project, which has been tabled. There were no major concerns over the budget, but I will go over that and hopefully be able to answer any of your questions. So that's the end of my report.
Is there any questions from the board? Anybody have any questions about the budget? Okay, seeing none.
Yes, I'm sure questions about the budget, but that hasn't come up yet, right?
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you, Mackie. Let's move on. We'll move on to 7D, update on BDD board priorities regarding Rio Grande water quality issues, Rick Carpenter and Kyle Harwood.
Madam Chair, we've been discussing over the last few board meetings a variety of issues and priorities related to Landland DOE. Mr. Harwood has put together a pretty concise memo that lists those out, and he would like to just step through that memo briefly, and then we can stand for questions.
Thank you, Rick. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. So yes, I put together this memo sort of summarizing a lot of loose ends that we've briefed to the board over the last several months. So I'll step us through these 5 items as efficiently as I can. And then as fate would have it, as soon as we finalized the agenda and packet last week, we learned of the NMED complaint that was the topic of one of the public comments. And so we did issue a amended agenda to add the next item to the discussion today. But let me turn to the items that are in the memo first. I actually have some late breaking news on number 1. For those of you who remember, we in our surveillance program flagged a permit on the Pajarito Plateau that rather surprisingly described some very significant water diversions, some 600 plus acre feet of diversion as part of a remediation project, without describing that water would not be consumptively used because the permit and the legal notice didn't say that. So counsel for the board, as well as counsel for Santa Fe County, did coordinate on a joint protest to that permit over concerns of what it basically did not say. regarding the remediation project. So I can report that as of late this afternoon, it appears that we've got a resolution in principle. I'll be getting a fuller update to John Utton tomorrow, but it seems like there is a resolution afoot. I hope to bring settlement of that protest to the board at the April 1st meeting. Again, this is for a cleanup project on Pajarito Plateau. So as the board has expressed in the past, we're very supportive of cleanup projects, but we also want to make sure that we understand the permitting that supports those projects. Should I stop now, Madam Chair, and just see if there are questions on that before we go into the next topic, or how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I do see Commissioner Hamilton has their hand raised, so Commissioner
Madam.
Hamilton.
Sure.
I mean, I know you said you're going to give us an update, I don't know, next month or something. Is there any indication that based on this protest or that whatever, they're actually doing what's needed to show how that water is going to be used? I mean, do you get a sense that progress is being made on that, appropriate progress is being made?
To the last question, Commissioner, I do think appropriate progress is being made. And I do sincerely believe I'll be able to bring you a fully prepared resolution and settlement of this matter at the April 1st meeting. If it's okay, I'd just as soon stop there for now and bring you the whole package next month, but it does look like this matter is on track to be resolved. Okay, any other questions from anybody? Yes, Councillor Ives.
Thank you. I believe you indicated the protest was filed both on behalf of the board and the County of Santa Fe. So we are a party to that protest. So is it reasonable to assume that we'll be briefed in executive session at the next meeting?
Yes, I'm sorry, Peter, but I should have maybe said this more clearly. The BDD and the county actually filed separate independent protests.
Okay.
I don't know if that was clear. And yes, I do think subject to, Nancy is often the keeper of the executive session. So I will obviously work with her on making sure that we get a discussion in executive session that fits with the other matters that are before the board.
And part of the reason I asked the question is we usually adjourn our meeting and then go into executive session and come out in the next meeting. So that would, if there is an agreement put in place to settle the matter, that might not be acted upon until the meeting after the next meeting. If
I think I'm following your concern. Let me put you somewhat at ease in that the remediation project is functioning now and has been under emergency authorizations. Obviously, the lab desires some permanent permitting status for the project, but I don't think the board's current calendar of meetings and whether we take it up in April or a finalized action in May should adversely affect the project as far as I understand. But I will I'll double check on that as we bring you the settlement proposal. But if I understand your concern that our schedule might delay something physically going on, I don't believe that's actually the case right now. So
just curious on that point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Ives. Any other questions on this item?
You still have your hand up, Council.
Councilor Ives, if you could put your hand down, that would be great. And then we'll go on to number 2, which is the Lannel MOU negotiation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We've had a reboot since the holidays and the change in the administration of our MOU negotiations with Lanel staff, we have Jay Lazarus. I believe he was here somewhere on the call earlier, as well as James Biarzi, who have been leading the technical topics in that negotiation. As my memo summarizes, we are continuing to operate in 2021 under a one-year extension of the prior 3-year MOU and getting the benefits of another calendar year of the old MOU while we work on a revised MOU. And I believe it's fair to say that the action item for the technical folks is to do a COVID safe and frankly, winter safe site visit in the E109-110 reach to see if we can't develop a consensus about the requests that the board has made with respect to that part of the early notification system. We are very much hoping to bring back to this board a consensus MOU, or one that has as much consensus as we can and highlighting the areas of disagreement. I would hope at the May meeting, so that the board can consider its options at that time. I would like to ask Jay if he has anything else he wants to add on this. Jay, don't feel like you need to get into any of the details. I don't know that we're doing that level of briefing right now, but I did want to make sure you had a chance to add anything, because I know the board likes to hear from you on this topic.
Chairwoman Hanson, Kyle, thank you. We have nothing to add to that, and really we'll have a lot better idea of how we want to approach this when we do our field trip. And truly, James does all the heavy lifting, but thank you, Kyle.
Very good. Are there any questions from the board on the MOU? Okay, very good. We're looking forward to bringing you back an update. The next topic is.
I'm sorry, Kyle. I want to thank Jay and James BRC for all the work that they are doing on our behalf on the MOU. So thank you. And then we can go on to the triennial review.
Yes, so we flagged for the board over the preceding quarters that there is a new triennial review afoot. This is the review of water quality standards. We are located in what's called segment 114 of the Rio Grande, the intake is, and the board might remember, I think only Rick and Nancy and I were around back when we did the last triennial review, which was some 11 and a half years ago. But we have reviewed the current posture of the triennial review and the board's comment letters to NMED in 2020, and the recommendation from Rick first, myself, and Gloria Geoscience is that we continue to monitor the triennial review, but that we not file expert testimony or an entry of appearance in the matter. That deadline is not very far out. So this is sort of the best time for you all to tell us if you do not wish to follow the recommendation. But it is the recommendation that we monitor and not pre-file expert testimony or an entry of appearance. So this is, relatively speaking, probably the biggest item on the memo for today. And with that, I'll stand for questions on this sub-item.
Are there any questions on the triennial review?
Yes, Councillor.
Okay, Councillor Romero-Worth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's the basis for that recommendation? Is this a financial issue or
no, no, Councillor. The board previously in 2009 argued for some segment specific and contaminant specific monitoring standards. Those are not being proposed to be changed by any of the other parties based on our surveillance of other parties' filings. And none of the other apparent changes that are being sort of pursued through what we've been able to track so far appear to materially affect the board's previously expressed priorities with respect to Rio Grande water quality. So I think, as you know, we make our recommendations first and then work with the board on budget second. And so this is our recommendation independent of budget.
Okay, I think it's just helpful if you, when you make a recommendation, if you can give us a little background on the basis for the recommendation, just so we know why you're saying it. Thanks.
Yes, and I'm sorry for not providing that level of detail, Counselor.
Are there any other questions from the board on the triennial review? Counselor Ives?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about what other opportunities than this review would there be to try and request the development and imposition of sort of Tmdls, the water quality standards for this reach of the Rio Grande?
Yes, thank you, Counselor. And I keep calling you Counselor with an S. I hope not with a C.
Whatever works.
There is a substantial list of topics to speak with NMED about as soon as we get past noon on March 20th, which is the end of the session. Development of Tmdls, and I won't list all the list of topics, but certainly there are issues like primacy and Tmdls and many other programmatic things that we feel would be helpful and protective to source water quality. And that is on the long list of topics to speak with our partner regulator about.
So I take it what you're saying is that the triennial review is not the only place we can raise those issues. And in fact, we're planning on raising them through other mechanisms with NMED.
I think that's fair to say. It's on a long list of topics that we do talk with those staffers about. They're fairly unavailable right now, as you can imagine, but hopefully they get their budget requests and they'll be able to stand up increased activities on things like Tmdls that they've not been able to make much progress on in recent years.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Kyle on that topic? Okay, next we will go on to item 4, the Lannell Splice.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, the heading got at the very bottom of the page there, but the text begins on the top of the next page. So as you all, I think, know, the city and county have been active on the site-wide EIS topic. What I have learned about this is that the federal regs contemplate site-wide EIS, that is site-wide environmental, impact statements being prepared about every 5 years. The last one for Llano was prepared in 2018 with a supplemental update prepared in 2018. Supplemental update, I should just say the supplement, did not involve significant public involvement. It was a review of whether the then existing site-wide EIS was still current, which they concluded it was. And so obviously, because our should we call them parent governments to the BDD have both taken action on this topic, it seemed appropriate to include it on a board agenda. If the board wanted to pass a resolution similar to the ones that our parent governments have done, it would be a very small exercise to bring that back to the April meeting. Alternatively, the fact that our parent governments have already passed or considering their own resolutions may make that not necessary. And I don't know if Nancy's going to kick me for calling them parent governments or not, but anyway, be that as it may, she can't. Well, no, she can kick me, all right. Don't you?
But
worry.
not she's not at the at least at the tables, but she can still push you.
But
So-
I'll kick you.
Yeah, I'm used to being kicked. So that's the topic on the memo for your consideration.
So I was hoping that my constituent liaison, Sarah Smith, could take a stab at combining our two resolutions into one for BDD and bringing that to Kyle, and then we could bring it forward in the April meeting. So that is my suggestion. Okay, any other comments on Lionel Swice? Mr. Ives, Member Ives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. You know, obviously, the statement is the regulations require the update every 5 years. Are those state or federal based regulations that require that? Is my first part.
Federal.
It's federal regulation.
And I suppose just the general question, given it's called for at 5 years, do we have any explanation or indication why it was not done in compliance with existing regulations?
I think it's fair to say that the regulations don't mandate it be done every 5 years, but it is considered best practice that when the mission of the lab facility, the DOE facility, is undergoing evolution, that it would be appropriate to do it. I suppose there's a joke somewhere there about the lab not following a rule that I won't make, but they are getting a lot of pressure to do it now, and apparently the new administration is quite interested in getting these things current, is my understanding.
Good. And I thought your joke would be, as opposed to referring to our respective governmental entities as parent entities, them as apparent entities. So.
Another slight joke there, I see. Thank you, Member Ives.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very slight.
I think that it's fair to say that the previous federal administration did not always follow best practices. So I think that we are now in a new era. So possibly best practices will be followed.
Madam Chair, you're a master of understatement.
Thank you.
Yeah, you get points for that one.
So next we will, I'm glad to get points. Next we will go to BDD project SWPP. So Kyle, number 5.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, this is a board approved priority and funded project that has largely been on hold for COVID reasons, and also knowing that it is an important but not urgent project. But it seems like this would be a good time to stand this project up in the new year that we are in. Rick, did you want to, I know you've had, I think, more contact on this topic than I have most recently. You're on mute, buddy.
I think I'd be used to that by now. I think at this point, I don't have any specific details to add. If it's something that develops further, we might bring it back to a standalone item.
Very good. So there'll be some kind of an update, I think, to the board as that outward facing activity stands up. So you're aware of it as it unfolds. Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Is this suggesting that we're actually ready to proceed with public meetings? Because I would not stand in favor of that.
No, I think they will be COVID safe Zoom meetings, but
well, we could have done that at any time during this past year.
Well, I know, but
so,
like I said, this is an important and perhaps not urgent matter. And so it has been pushed down a little bit because it's important but not urgent, because we had a number of urgent things, I think, in this space over the preceding months. So I think it's yeah, and I'm sorry if we could have moved forward it earlier and we did not, then we should perhaps do so now.
It just seemed a bit confusing, and I was a little concerned that we're planning to go forward with public meetings, because that's what I got from reading it, that we wanted to have them in person, and that's not appropriate yet. It could be very, very soon, and that's so either way is fine, but that's what I was asking about. That's all.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's what Ms. Comer intends to do, is to not have in-person meetings. Okay, very good. Well, that concludes the memo contents, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. I'm going to go on now to 7E, which is a presentation on the NMED versus U.S. Department of Energy consent decree, and believe this is also Mr. Harwood.
Yes, thank you. So this is I think fair to say, fascinating development in the LANL world. For those of you who don't remember the history, it was a lawsuit not unlike this one that ultimately concluded with the 2005 consent order that did so much work up on LANL campus with respect to cleanup, and also provided the environment for Congress to make significant appropriations of money for the cleanup of a lab facility that has not only got historic legacy waste, but also has an active mission in national security. And so, as the complaint describes, and I've provided it along with the summons to you, and there's a cover memo as well that I believe was provided. That complaint describes the dispute resolution mechanisms in the 2016 order on consent, which is a very different agreement that provides a bare fraction of the protection and operative provisions for cleanup. But the complaint describes that the 2016 provisions that replaced the 2005 consent order have failed between NMED and the lab over the preceding months, and that's the proximate cause for or approximate reason, I should say, for the filing of the lawsuit. There's a lot in the lawsuit. I should note that with James and Jay's help, we've reviewed some of the cleanup projects that are described, and at least two of them are in the LA Pueblo Canyon watershed. As I think many of you know, half of LANL campus drains into the Rio Grande above our intake. The other half drains into the Rio Grande below our intake. We tend to focus most specifically on activities that are in the LA Pueblo Canyon watershed, because it is upstream of our intake. And so we did confirm that. I did have occasion to speak with Council Bruce Basil earlier this week. He is about to be the new general counsel at NMED. He is replacing Jennifer Hauer, who many of you might know. Jennifer Pruitt, the Assistant Cabinet Secretary, has also given notice of her departure from the agency. So there are a lot of changes going on at NMED, and it was very interesting to speak to Bruce Basil about the lawsuit. And this is not an action item in any manner. This is just an informational item this evening. It is a very recent development, and it's going to bear watching to see what comes of this complaint. There's more than one theory that it is going to get removed to federal court. And the complaint also requests court administered mediation, among other things, including the payment of penalties. So it's a very interesting complaint. I don't know if you'd like to talk about it more today, or whether you'd like to direct us to bring back some kind of update or summary. It's also possible we could invite back folks from NMED or other people you've heard from in the past, like Charlie DeSalen. Obviously, these are folks that are either paid for by other government entities, or that are available to the board, not as consultants, but people like Charlie who enjoy coming and speaking to the board, that are not board consultants. But at any rate, there's a bunch of different ways we could continue to update the board on this important development. So I stand for any questions or direction you might have.
Is there any questions from the board? Commissioner Hamilton?
Not really a question, but I would think that there's some efficient way that to get future summaries would be of interest, because it could have implications, to our board.
Very much.
So I think it would be useful in some of the people. I mean, there were some NMED people who've spoken to us before, like Stephanie Stringer, who worked quite a bit on this. So, I think it's a good idea.
Very good. Well, yeah.
I thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. I also agree. I have to share with everybody that on the day of that the lawsuit was filed, Stephanie Stringer was the first phone call that I received, and it would made my day. So I was quite happy to take her phone call, and I think that we should continue to get updated. I would love to hear Charlie's take on this, and then also updates from NMED. I was also wondering if our E109.9 station could possibly have any role, or how we could actually bring that to their attention.
That's a fascinating question, Commissioner. I think the answer largely here, only a couple of workdays after filing the complaint, is it remains to be seen. I did see that Jay Lazarus unmuted there. Jay, did you want to add something?
Chairwoman Kyle, thank you. The field trip that we'll be having in May is directly related to E1099 and E110. So.
It was also on that day of the filing of the lawsuit, I happened to have a meeting scheduled with Kurt Lockman, who is also now the new DOE EM manager. He comes from WIP and Washington, D.C. This meeting had been scheduled sometime before. He was not aware of E109.9, but I did make him aware of it, and I have invited him to also come to our meetings, and so that we can hear from all sides. So I just wanted to share that piece of information, and this seems like to be the proper place to do that. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was just going to ask the same. Are there any, other than the request that we provide efficient updates to the board as this case unfolds, is there any other direction or questions that we can work on for you? Okay, hearing none, we'll contact some of those folks that have helped bring information to the board in the past, and I think most of the state folks, I think, are going to be pretty worn out after the 20th. So I don't know we're going to get them to commit to April 1st. We are having a meeting on April Fool's Day. Is that right?
That's what it says in the packet.
Okay. Well, we'll see who's available for that day and do our best to provide effective and efficient updates to the board. So
thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. And even though our meeting is on April 1st, it is not a April Fool. Okay. Thank you for those presentations to everybody. I'm going to go on to either 8A or 9A, which is action items, discussion and action, request for approval and recommendation to Santa Fe County Board of Commissioners and City of Santa Fe to approve the fiscal year 2022 Buckman Direct Diversion operating budget and other fund contributions. I will turn it over to Rick and Mackie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, we were asked again this year to create as closely as we could a flat budget resembling last year. There have been a few changes we had to make here and there, but you'll see when Mackie begins her presentation, a lot of it's going to look pretty familiar to you. And we'd be happy to stand for questions. So Mackie, take it away.
You're on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, the BDD is pleased to present the proposed annual operating budget for fiscal year 2022. The proposed budget accounts for all projected necessary costs to meet the board's service level objectives and to continue to provide high quality water to our partners, the City of Santa Fe County, the club at Las Campanas, and the Las Campanas Water and Sewer Cooperative. The BDD did actively collaborate with our partners on the development on this budget, and therefore the BDD would like the board to approve and recommend $8,842,711 for our operations for fiscal year 2022. We also recommend that the board approve contributions to the Major Repair and Replacement Fund of $626,706. As Rick mentioned, for the most part, the budget did remain flat while reallocating expenses between categories, and but the budget does include a slight increase of $78,996. This is related to a projected increase in electricity and chemicals as the county is projected to serve some additional customers in fiscal year 2022. And therefore, these costs were solely allocated to Santa Fe County's contributions. And so if you see on page 8 of your packet, table C, I did include a comparison. So there's a budget comparison from our adopted budget fiscal year 2021 to the proposed budget fiscal year 2022. And from there, you can see that the only increase is the $78,000 that's being allocated to the county. This table also includes actuals so that you kind of get a comparison as to what we spent in fiscal year 2020. And our overall expenses is $8,665,134. And this is important because BDD wants to try to get as close as possible between budget and actuals. The table does include several of our categories that we budget. I did include more detailed for our materials and supplies. And so if you look at table C1 on page 9, I do have a breakout of what contributes to materials and supplies. And then on table C2 would be what contributes to our other operating costs that are included in the budget. BDD's annual operating budget consists of fixed, variable, and project-wide costs. These costs are allocated by percentages that are contained in the Facility Operations and Procedures Agreement. We also use our water projections for the year. These water projections affect how we budget our variable costs and our project-wide costs. And so I have included on page 11 of your packet, there's table D and table E. Table D does represent all the cost sharing principles that were used in developing this budget. And then table E includes not only actual water deliveries for prior fiscal years, but then the projections for fiscal year 2022, which, as I said, was used to develop this budget. So because we do use water projections to develop the majority of the budget, even though our budget did remain flat with the exception of the $78,000, the actual each partner's individual contribution or revenue from fiscal year 2021 does shift, and the partners are aware of this. And again, it shifts because of how much water they are projecting to take in fiscal year 2022. And so if you go to the last page of your board packet, which is page 18, you'll see the funding allocation by partner, and it does include some additional revenue sources. Our P&M solar rebate revenue is a revenue source that we use for the budget. We do receive federal funds from the Department of Energy. And then we have the county conservation fee, which since that's a different revenue source it comes from the county's customers, that's also just separated out. And then I do have the major repair and replacement fund broken out by each partner. So that is the end of my presentation. Overall, the budget is for, including the contributions, it's $9,469,417. And I am happy to answer any specific questions.
Thank you, Mackie, very much. Are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Hamilton?
Does the budget include the couple of unfilled positions that we had talked about that are still on the books, but that were deemed necessary that might be filled in the coming year?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Hamilton. Yes, so all the vacant positions does include filling those positions and for the full year. So if you remember in fiscal year 21, we only partially funded those positions, but now they are fully funded in this request.
Next, I will go to Councillor Vihel-Coppler. If you are finished, Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Madam
so
Chair.
Councillor Vihel-Coppler?
Thank you. I wanted to ask about litigation costs. We were a little bit over in our actuals, and I'm wondering and then we're budgeting at the same amount. Is that just sort of to see how we go? Like, I guess we normally do that?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, so yes, we have been budgeting about $2 million each year, and you're right. Last year we did go over, and we did have to submit some bars to cover those costs. And so, hope maybe Nancy can answer, but I think the majority of the costs were really high in that year. And so we're hoping that those, the majority of the work was being done in that year. And so hopefully now at least we don't anticipate or project that we would go over that $2 million budgeted mark for litigation next year.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is in the salaries and benefits section, I note that the salaries just, the budgeted amount just slightly went up. No. Yeah. But the benefits went down in our request. Is there a reason?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, it could have just been some shifting of some of the positions and at what level we budgeted those benefits. And so I probably had brought them down for maybe some of the higher insurance rates that we use. And then, so it really was just shifting of those.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask, last year, we made an effort to get on the city's budget hearing schedule so that we could assert, the independence of the board. And I'm wondering if any thought has been given to that. I know that the budget hearing schedule has come out, but we don't have the departments yet listed on it. So I'm wondering if we're going to bow out of that this year, or do you think we're going to bow in?
Chair, Counselor, I think I would like to, it would be my preference, as it was last year, to have a standalone presentation during those hearings. I think you supported that as well last year. I haven't had a chance to discuss that with Dr. Roach or Shannon Jones. I don't know where they stand on that, but I would certainly be willing to take that up with them.
Okay, just as information, I actually worked with Finance Director Mary McCoy to arrange for scheduling and the importance of that. So however you wish, I just thought I'd let you know. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Romero Worth, you had your hand up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to have somebody speak to the water projections. It looks like we're thinking that we'll need more water. We'll be pulling more water in fiscal year 2022. I assume that's because of drought. And I'm just wondering, how you got to the number that you got to, if you could just give a little more background.
Sure, Madam Chair and Councilor Romero Worth. We have ongoing discussions with both the city and the county on what they think their level of demand will be and the projected use of water and the various sources of those waters. It's sort of a moving target, but yes, a lot of it has to do with the coming drought or the continued drought and what we think Nichols and McClure reservoirs might be able to produce, and then therefore would we need to take more out of the Rio Grande. So that's a projection that is somewhat conservative. It could change. Now, I don't want to speak for the hydrologists at the city or the county, but that has been considered for a long time, looking at a lot of the models, ERDWOM, not the least of which, SNOTEL, snowpack, snow water equivalent, things like that. And it's the projections that they put together that they give to the BDD. I see that Dr. Roach is on the call. I don't know if he would like to add to that or not.
Thanks, Rick. I think you covered it pretty well. We do have a weekly meeting, and we develop monthly projections. And then in the case of the BDD budget, we develop annual projections that are out of ways. And it's probably too far for us to really understand what the snowpack will be doing, but we did our best to take into considerations all the variables that we could estimate. And we do, as Rick mentioned, we do account for the fact that we're planning to draw down Nichols completely at the end of this year through the winter. So that may be why the city projection at least is higher than what we've seen previously.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, if I'm on page 13, it looks like well, not even, I guess I can't really say historically, but more often than not, let's say that. our predictions for the number of gallons delivered are higher than what actually happens. And I just want to make sure I'm not, that I'm reading that correctly.
So Madam Chair, Councilor Romelworth, you are correct, which does make it difficult to budget. And so it really is a balance between what we think will come in actuals and then the water prediction, so that we don't budget too much money and then they don't take the water and I have too much budget tied up.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds tricky because none of us have a crystal ball, but just thought it would be interesting to hear from you all directly on that side. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Romero-Worth. I do wish we all had a crystal ball. Commissioner Hamilton, I saw had your hand up again.
Yeah, it's just a follow-up to Councilor Coppler's question. This is just an issue of I gather it looks like I'm the only one who doesn't understand, but I guess I thought the benefits would be like proportional to the payroll estimate. And I had noticed that and then failed to ask the question, but I don't understand the answer. You know, so, Joanne did, but I didn't. So.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I do apologize. I was looking at my spreadsheet after I answered. And so what happened is actually our workers' comp, and this may be something that the city tends to shift a lot of our allocations to the city waters budget. And so I haven't been billed water compensation cost. And so because of that, I removed that from the budget, and it was about, it was almost $100,000. And so I took that out because it just isn't a cost that BDD isn't picking up right now. And so
in benefits.
Yes, that's
payroll
usually
benefits.
Yes, that's usually where it hits our budget.
Oh, okay.
Mackie, excuse me, Madam Chair. You meant to say workers' comp, right? I think you said water.
Oh, yes, workers' comp, sorry.
Okay, is everybody clear and have their questions answered? I do think that it's probably a good idea to present at the City Finance Committee, and maybe we can work with Dr. Roach and Mr. Carpenter and Councilor Vigil Koppler and Romero-Worth on those issues. As Vice Chair, Councilor Romero-Worth, that's something that you feel would be appropriate?
Sure, Madam Chair, and I do sit on the Finance Committee, and I'd be happy to also work with staff in reaching out to Mary McCoy and just emphasizing that is something this board would like to do.
Yes, and I'll be happy to attend, but I want to leave that in your court, so to speak. So, okay, thank you. Any more questions from anyone on the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes. I'm sorry, I missed your hand going up so quickly, Councilor Vigil Koppler.
I want to, if I may, just kind of reiterate a bit of history. The reason we wanted to participate in the city's budget hearings, because it was a little different, but the reason I just want to reiterate is that we wanted to, and I said this a while ago, emphasize our independence and more educate, for lack of a better word, how our organizational chart worked and how we have a difference in how we're administratively attached to the city by Fiscal, having them be our fiscal agent, but that we make our own decisions. So I think we made some good headway in that goal. So I would recommend that you maybe continue that goal, but see if there's any other outstanding things that maybe we want to communicate other than that. There may be some other things you come up with, Madam Chair, that you also want to get across. But I really believe it was a very good exercise in undertaking the differences in our organizational chart. And, because we did have some new people join the city, including the finance director. And it's not always apparent how these organizational anomalies work. And so that was really the goal, as well as asserting our budget and that educating the city on what their portion is and why, and how those our budget is allocated among the partners, the expenses, I should say. And so I felt it was a really good exercise. It was fairly smooth, fairly. But you might keep that in mind as you go forward, and what else you would like to convey. So, because I don't know how much stuck.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments, and I think that our negotiations over this solar project is definitely an example of the complications and intricacies of the BDD and the partners and all the things that we are working on. So I can definitely see some benefit in this exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the board? So what is the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the fiscal year 22 budget.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, J.C. Helms seconded. Can I please have a roll call vote? Karen?
Sure. Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
and Chair Hansen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Seeing that is the only item under 8 or 9A. Oh no, we're going to go on to 8 or 9C, which is appointment by the chair of committee members to FISAC and Audit Committee of the Buckman Direct Diversion Board. As the chair and vice chair, I have asked Councilor Romero Worth to serve on the FISAC committee with me. And I think that we just needed to put it in the minutes for the record so people knew who was serving on that board. So, Commissioner Hamilton.
Do you need, does it have to be a motion to that effect? Or
it says
is it just
appointment.
information?
It says appointment by the chair. So I'm, and it is.
I saw that. I was just double checking.
We will ask Ms. Long.
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioner Hamilton. It is just an appointment by the chair, and that's how we've handled it, but always good to check if we need.
Yeah, just checking. Great.
Okay. With that, so I am appointing myself and Councilor Romero Worth as members. And if Commissioner Hamilton would like to be the alternate, I'm more than happy to have that also happen.
I mean, yeah, sure. But I thought we'd all be alternates if anybody's
right.
Not
Anybody.
available. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is there, next is matters from the board. So is there any matters from the board that anybody needs to bring up? Commissioner Hamilton?
It's a question, on the item we tabled, do we need to schedule a special meeting? Do we need to do that now? It's not a
Ms.
loaded
Long?
question. You know, I was just curious. I thought that was mentioned by Rick.
Madam Chair, because of the city's deadline, which I believe is March 29th for the financing, we need to get these agreements approved by the board before that date. And we don't know when the issues will be worked out. I certainly hope they will be by next week, but I think Jamie Ray can probably circulate around some options for a special meeting. And of course, we have to have 3 days notice and the agenda ready prior to that. So it will occur before that date, before to meet the deadline, before March 29.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Romero.
I think it would be important to try to get a date to aim at sooner rather than later. It doesn't have to be during this meeting, but I think we all have quite a few meetings already on our calendars, and I know the City Council has 1 or 2 meetings coming up that were our special meetings, although I guess maybe they're in April, so maybe that won't matter, but around a land use issue. So yeah, just the sooner we can kind of look out there and block out some time, I think the better. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you, Councilor Romero Worth. We all of our schedules get filled up rather quickly. So I know that we normally meet on a Thursday, but for me, a Thursday is all throughout the month. It's usually a very busy meeting, but I hope that we don't have to go until the 25th. I hope that we can resolve this beforehand, but I would think that might be our deadline. And I do also think that these agreements have to be approved by both the city and the county again. So I think maybe aiming for more something in the week of the 15th might be more accurate, and giving everybody enough time to make sure that we can get these agreements wrapped up. Because I do agree this is an important project, and we want to see more solar everywhere, but we also have to do this right. And I saw that you joined our meeting, Marcos. Do you have anything you would like to add or say?
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson, for the question. I don't have a lot to add. I am hopeful that the parties can resolve the issues. I will say that we have a meeting scheduled on Monday with the County Attorney's Office and Nancy Long's office. And I hope we can hammer out all of the unresolved issues at that time. We, the city, are prepared to move forward with this on Wednesday. And so if we're unable to resolve it by then, we'll have to also have some kind of special meeting. But it is my great hope that we can resolve all the issues by Monday, and therefore have it moved to the City Council on the 10th.
Okay, thank you very much, Marcos Martinez, for that piece of information. Are there any other comments from the board or matters? Councilor Vigil Cockler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank Mackie Romero for coming back and reincarnating on our screen and doing all this work on the budget. Very much appreciated, because I know you have another job, and you know, kudos to you. Thank you. And also would like to recognize Bernadine Padilla for my background photo, which also matches hers. So we are twins instead of Councilor Romero Worth and Kyle. So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thanks, Mackie.
Yes, thank you. I thanked Mackie last night at the Fifth Act meeting, and we are grateful to have her expertise available to us at this board. So we are grateful. And just so all of you know, Bernadine sends out the best news updates ever. And so thank you, Bern, for those updates. I really appreciated the one today from the Colorado WOTUS lawsuit. So thank you. So then I will go on to our next meeting, which is Thursday, April 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. And it is likely that we will have a special meeting in between that. So we will have actually a next meeting before that. We also are going into executive session. So I am going to allow, I would like to ask Ms. Long to please take it away.
Yes, Madam Chair. If you could ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting and go into executive session in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978, Section 1015, 1H7, for discussion regarding pending litigation in which the BDDB is a participant, and specifically for the case as described on your agenda.
So do I have a motion to adjourn and go into executive session? Commissioner Hamilton?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Romero Worth. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilor Vijo Koppler,
Yes?
and Chair Hansen.
Yes, and I believe that we have all received a link for the executive session. It was sent out at 4:07. So we will adjourn and see you on the next screen. So thank you, everybody, for attending.
Bye.
Thank you.